All right. Well, welcome everyone to the FAR Masterclass of the 11th of March 2022. We have two presenters. Jean Bédard will do the main presentation, and Alain Schatt will make sure that if you have questions that you will be able to ask the questions, which can either go via the chat or by raising your hand. And we are very proud that they are going to present their topic of today, which is, looking at the economic consequences of mandatory. That's an important word we will learn today. Mandatory joint audits, because they will be discussing. I think also, that there is a difference in expected outcome when it is mandatory or not. So they will be talking about economic consequences of joint audits and also, what are the political motivations for that.
Okay, so why did we look at the mandatory French audit, mandatory joint audit? This concept existed in France since 1966. It was introduced in the Code de commerce, which is the company law of France. And it has been mandatory in France since that time. It also has been mandatory in some other country, in Denmark until 2005, and Canada for banks until 1991. Since that time, it has been removed in Denmark. In Canada, it has been removed, like I said, for banks. Banks have continued to do it voluntarily until the beginning of the 2000s, Canada, and in Denmark, few companies are still doing it. It was also proposed in the EU Green Paper after the crisis, and it was not adopted by the European Parliament. Since that time, joint audit has still went back and has been proposed as a way to modify the audit, the structure of the audit sector. So it has been proposed in the Netherlands, having the joint audit for multinational public interest entities or public companies, or another way, more as a peer review system. Same thing has been proposed in the UK by the competition market authorities in 1999, and again, it has been rejected. And following that, the government, the UK government, came with a proposal to have what they call share audits, which is the audit by another group of auditor, but only for subsidiaries or subsidiaries, not the main companies here. So we see that there's a lot of interest in joint audit in the world. It has been there, and many countries decided not to have it anymore, and some other are proposing to have it back here. So we decided to look at whether this joint audit system is useful in terms of consumer well-being, in terms of concentration and price and quality of audit services. And this project was funded by FARS, and that's what we did for FARS. So we have a review paper that we did on the literature on this topic. Then we came back, and based on this review, we thought, why did the French still have this system while the other country have decided not to have it mandatory anymore, and why other country wants to do it here? To this, and that's what we're trying to provide here, based on the literature as well as on some of the work that we did as to the involvement of the French government and regulator in terms of changing or modifying the system. Our second question came when we were invited by the H3C, which is the French regulator, kind of the PCOB of the French, and on a consultation that they're doing on the joint audit. And in that consultation, they interviewed people from practice as well as academic. And Alain and I were invited as academic with another academic, which is Christelle Richard here. And during that consultation, they asked us kind of our literature review and what we found. And then there was a second conference, still by the H3C, what they call the Joint Audit Day, where I gave you the it was filmed, so it's on YouTube now, so you can watch it if you want to look at this. And the objective of that conference was kind of, if you read the invitation, was to initiate discussion on the promotion of co-auditing or joint audit in the European Union and as a way to improve the French system. So you can see here that the objective of the regulator was not questioning should we maintain it, but more it's good and how can we improve it if there's anything to improve. So we just raised a bell and said, why do they want to keep the system here? Or why was it there in first and why do we keep it? So that's what we're trying to do in this paper. So what do we know from the academic literature? Moderately lower market concentration, no significant benefit, at least there's no decrease in quality, okay? But there's an increase in cost of the audit, okay? We're talking between 15, 30%. 30% seems to be like a consensus level, but there's an increase in fees. So when you look at this, you have the same quality, higher cost. Why did France keep this system that was adopted in '66? Okay, while other countries have decided to abandon that system. Like we said before, might be the French difference. It's difficult for France to change things. Yeah, there might be some valid answer. So we decided to look at this issue. Okay, and then we look at the comments letters that were sent to the European Commission. Okay, and we compare the Big Four, the non-Big Four, and the other stakeholders. As you might expect, okay, the firms that have something to gain were for it, and those that had something to lose were against it. Okay, and so the non-Big Four said that it reduce the market concentration for the audit of the large entities, reduce systemic risk, and then promote financial stability. And this will be done. It's perfect if you have this, but in order to achieve this objective, you need a more balance of work between the Big Four and non-Big Four, because at that time, the Big Four were acquiring a larger percentage of the fees when you had a joint audit. So they wanted something that was more balanced so that the non-Big Four will get a larger part of the share. On the other end, the Big Four, okay, they were for let's say the free market, okay? So companies should have the freedom to decide to appoint one or two auditors if they wanted. Okay, I can tell you the experience in Canada, like I told you, the bank kept their joint auditor for almost 10 years. And just after Enron, they all decided to abandon the joint audit and move to a single audit. So, and same thing happened in the Denmark. Okay, Big Four were saying there was an increased cost of having a joint audit, and that's what the literature kind of shows also. And they talk about negative impact on audit quality in their comments here. Okay, because of the there's always a part of the work that you're not doing, so the quality might be lower depending on the type of auditor that you have, on the quality of the other auditor that is chosen by the company here. The other stakeholder, but there was the H3C that gave his opinion on this, and they see that it provides the emergence of other players and a greater independence, so the argument that we already heard before. And investor and preparer were really concerned about the increased cost of joint audit, and they were not talking about the other one. So we can see here there's a lobbying. We're talking about political decision. So this group were lobbying, and we see that there's some people that win. Okay, let's say the non-Big Four, the Big Four lose, and the other stakeholder, the companies pay more. Okay, and do the investor get better audit quality or better financial quality? They're kind of concerned about the cost here. So are you surprised about with this comment here?
Yeah, and we can add, Jean, maybe that there was a big consensus between non-Big Four and a big consensus between Big Four. So non-Big Four were all in favor, and Big Four were all against, which is amazing. And usually all non-Big Four said, yeah, we need joint audit and we need to share the revenue. So the time spent on the audit and the revenue. So we can see there's a real conflict of interest here between Big Four and non-Big Four regarding this joint audit issue?
So we saw there's kind of a political, and one of the issue that they said, okay, it brings, like I said in the previous slide, it gave the emergence of other players than the Big Four, okay, and also it reduces systemic risks when you have another non-Big Four, another large firm that is there, because if there's one Big Four that goes bankrupt, okay, or go out of the market, then you have the other firm that can just go there and do the audit here. So what does the literature show us? Like I said before, less concentrated, okay. One firm was able to raise, to grow, okay, to compete the Big Four in the French market. No significant benefit, higher cost. We see that there's some political motivation. Okay, it's not only an issue of cost or quality, but there's also a kind of protectionist, being able to have large French, and they were saying here, large French companies or auditor firm that will raise and be able to compete globally. And we said that there's one that was there. In terms of systemic risk, 76% of pairs included a non-Big Four. So again, if a Big Four disappear, will those firms be able to do the audit for those firms? That's a question here that we don't have the answer, but should be looked at. In terms of application, for investor and regulation, well, we talked about the political motivation, so it plays an important role, okay? And it was said before in the discussion that we had, okay, the results might differ in other contexts. When we're talking about Italy versus France or what, we know that in France, there's a ban on non-audit services for the auditor. There are mandatory 6-year contracts, and there's a lot of other issues that are there in France that makes the result maybe not comparable or not applicable to other countries. So we really need to look at the institutional context to be able to decide what should be done in one country. For researcher, okay, we always want to inform the policymaker, okay, based on our research. What we said before, we need more research, more recent research, but we see that there's not only like the economic type or consequence that we have in terms of research, but there's also the idea that the politics that's involved. And I remember a paper that was like a market for excuse in terms of research. So what do regulators take in terms of research result to be able to sell their policy here? So we have, as researchers, we have to be aware that there's not only the economic base, but there's the political part of it. And maybe we should also look at this political process here. And it might explain why the participation of the academic in regulation is low, okay, in the consultation process. And maybe we should be more there. There's more and more research or paper on the idea that we should, as academic, be more involved in terms of the regulation. I know that in the US with the PCOB and the SEC, they have to base their policy based on research. So they cite working papers and research that has been published in their regulation. We don't see that necessarily in every country. So maybe we have a role to have here, not only in terms of paper, but also responding to those comments. There was not too many academics that responded to the EC call on their proposal for the joint audit, okay, 10 years ago. So maybe we should be more there.